Susan, I think Brian just found his new favorite sister. That was awesome. So here, let me go. I'm not quite sure where to begin, so I will jump in and do what I do best, talk, and probably too fast, and a lot. Brian was a bit of an enigma to many. He could often be grumpy or gruff, definitely a straight shooter. Your feelings be damned. Judgmental? Sure. There's no question you knew where you stood with him at all times. You already heard that. But Brian had this incredibly kind, considerate, and caring side that he liked to think he hid from people. When we were children, he always picked me as a partner, and we always lost. Yet, he still picked me again and again just to protect me and make me feel valued. We never talked about it, but I always knew what he was doing, and I loved him for it. As a kid, Brian was just as hard to figure out. He worshiped Heather Locklear, Cheryl Ladd, Heather Thomas, and chewed extra spearmint gum 24/7. He listened to Iron Maiden, Depeche Mode, and the Pet Shop Boys. He loved the Smurfs and had a huge collection of them. He always wondered who stole Papa Smurf. It was me. But don't worry, once he was nice, I slipped it back into that collection for him. When I got engaged, he was not very nice to me. Brian scolded me when my husband had proposed. He was just being protective. Pretty soon he was asking me, how did you nab such a smart guy? He's a good dude. A total geek, though. He was happy that I had found a geek who fit so perfectly with me. Over the years, Brian would reach out to talk for a second, and let's air quote that because this means listening to a myriad of jokes and wisecracks, mini lectures, and of course, complaints. Many of you have been blessed with these types of Brian conversations. And just as you're asking yourself, why did he call me? Brian would then follow with sarcastic thoughts and questions to really zing you. He liked to mess with you, you know? Ironically, this is how you knew Brian really cared. At least that's how I knew he cared. We could talk for hours on the phone and never realize how much time had passed. It is the 21st century, so let's talk about texting, as you already heard. Brian's text messages to family, friends, and coworkers were well-thought-out mixes of letters and emojis that recipients would need a code book just to decipher. Yet he was strict with grammar when it came to anyone's reports. Right, guys? Ah, Brian. He swore he was a loner, but he was a loner surrounded by friends and family. If he was inviting you to a party, he may greet you with a crabby, expletive-laden set of remarks, and then welcome you into his house to share his food, and then send you off with days' worth of leftovers. Brian was not a hugger, so instead, you got a case of beer, Red Bull, or Yoo-hoo thrust into your arms, as if it were a party favor. And yes, all from Costco. When Brian met Susan, he was swept away by her quiet and sweet personality. And I remember that, Susan. He welcomed Peter and Sam with love and his quintessential sarcasm, supporting you both. He lived for his kids. Brian, the monkey, as his dad called him, had the best lunches a dad could concoct for a kid. Assorted candies, devil dogs, muscle milks, and more. Again, all from Costco, slipped into his lunch bag. Sorry, Susan, you know there was nothing healthy in that bag when he packed it. He loved all of you in his own special way. Susan and little Brian, you both know how much Brian loved you. He lived, worked, and did a ton of overtime, all to make sure you guys had everything you could ever need. Now, for you, Susan, he's a spirit watching over you. And for Mom and Dad, he's an angel. He will be with you, watching those soccer games and milestones, shaking his head at your Halloween decorations, supervising egg collections, and wondering what's on sale at Costco and who slipped in front of him for that overtime job. To Mom and Dad, the old maid and the old timer, Brian will be desperately trying to find that winning scratch-off for you, though he will be silently criticizing something you're doing from afar. I am sure all he would want is to make one more delivery to you from Costco. Really, Brian truly had a big heart. He was always reaching out to our mom and dad to check on them, especially during COVID. He often, along with Susan and the monkey, Brian, would make the weekly trek from Brookfield, Costco, over to New York to deliver a plethora of goods from foods, plants, a grill, power tools, and window washer fluid, because you just can't have enough of that, right? I could go on, but you name it, Brian would buy it and deliver it. He would say, "It was on sale, it was a great deal, and I had to buy it." My husband Dave remarked that he is not sure now what Costco is going to do without Brian's membership. He was single-handedly keeping the Brookfield store afloat. Brian made these types of similar gift drops to my house as well, and then he'd jet off back to Connecticut to get sleep for an hour before heading out to work. He was always working, wasn't he? It's not a surprise to me that his way of leaving us was via the job. Service to the greater good, right? Many of you here share that calling, and I thank you. Brian, along with my brothers George and Scott, spoke only about being police officers since they were kids. I cannot think of a better way for Brian to leave us: serving and protecting the public. I'm almost done, guys, I swear. When we were toddlers, Brian adorned me with the name Luli, and that has stuck through my life by many friends and my family. I am so honored today that I will always carry a part of him with me now. He named me, after all. Brian had nicknames for almost everyone, and the more crass or severe they were, the more I suspect he loved you. Needless to say, one nickname for a brother of ours was what you were all sitting on, and it isn't a chair, which, spoiler alert over here, she gave that one up. Mine was school crap. I still don't know why. I really don't. Brian would be so mad at all of you for coming today. But deep down, nope. He'd still be really ticked at you. And let's face it, would we really want it any other way? So if Bert Shirt, our own nickname for Brian, who loved Bernie and Bert, sorry. He knew, if he knew that I was saying all this right now, he would, as only Brian could get away with saying, "Luli, cut the shit, stop talking, and let these people get the hell out of here." You know what, wait, unless I get overtime if I keep going. No? No. Okay, then I will leave you with Brian's favorite goodbye, as you heard. God bless.